Hello, my lovely, amazing subscribers. I hope I'm not meeting you at a bad time. I want to tell you a story. This is a true life story. This happened a long time ago in African Nigeria. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Once upon a time.
In the heart of Nigeria, nestled among rolling hills and lush forests, lay the prosperous kingdom of Idara. For generations, it had thrived under the rule of wise monarchs, but now a cloud of uncertainty hung over the royal palace. King Alfred, once a strong and decisive ruler, had grown old and weary. His once black hair had turned silver, and wrinkles etched deep lines across his face. As he sat on his gilded throne, he couldn't help but worry about the future of his beloved kingdom. King Alfred's household was far from peaceful. He had 2 wives, each from a different tribe, and their constant bickering echoed through the palace halls. Queen Deborah, a Yoruba woman with sharp features and an even sharper tongue, was his first wife. Her only son, Prince Ojo, stood tall and proud, his eyes always calculating, always seeking an advantage. On the other side was Queen Melissa, an Igbo woman with a gentle demeanor and a kind smile. Her son, Prince Chidi, was known throughout the kingdom for his compassion and fairness. Both princes were now 30 years old, in the prime of their lives, and the question of succession loomed large over Idara. One sunny morning, as King Alfred sat in his private chambers, he called for his trusted advisor, Elder Akintola. The old man entered, his walking stick tapping softly on the marble floor. "My king," Elder Akintola said, bowing deeply. "How may I serve you today?" King Alfred sighed heavily. "Akintola, my old friend, I fear for the future of Idara. My wives quarrel endlessly, and their sons. Well, you know the situation." Elder Akintola nodded sagely. "Indeed, my king. The tension in the palace is palpable." "Tell me," King Alfred leaned forward, his voice low, "what do you see in my sons?" The elder took a moment before responding. "Prince Ojo is ambitious and clever, my king. He has a sharp mind for politics and strategy, but the king prompted. "But his heart is cold, your majesty. He and Queen Deborah, they hunger for power in a way that worries me." King Alfred nodded, having observed this himself. "And Chidi?" A small smile touched Elder Akintola's lips. "Prince Chidi is beloved by the people, my king. He has a good heart and a genuine desire to help others. Queen Melissa has raised him well." The king leaned back, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "So we have one son with the cunning to rule, but perhaps not the compassion, and another with the heart of a true leader, but possibly lacking the ruthlessness sometimes needed to govern." "You have summarized it well, your majesty." King Alfred stood, walking to the window that overlooked the kingdom. The bustling marketplace, the farmers in their fields, the children playing in the streets, all of it would one day be under the rule of one of his sons. The weight of this decision pressed heavily upon him. "What am I to do, Akintola? How can I choose between my own flesh and blood?" The elder joined him at the window. "Perhaps, my king, the choice need not be yours alone." King Alfred turned, his interest piqued. "What do you mean?" "In the old days," Elder Akintola began, his eyes distant with memory, "when 2 candidates were equally matched, they would be given a task. The one who completed it first would be deemed worthy of the throne." The king's eyes lit up. A task? Yes, that could work. But what task would be fitting? Elder Akintola smiled. "Marriage, my king. And not just marriage, but the birth of an heir. The first prince to marry and produce a son would be named your successor." King Alfred clapped his hands together. "Brilliant, Akintola. It's perfect. It will test not only their ability to win a bride, but also to start a family, a crucial skill for any ruler." As the king and his advisor discussed the details of this plan, They were unaware of the eavesdropper just outside the door. Queen Deborah, her ear pressed against the keyhole, smiled wickedly. This was the opportunity she and Ojo had been waiting for. Later that day, King Alfred summoned both his wives and sons to the throne room. The tension was thick as the four of them stood before him, eyeing each other warily. "My family," King Alfred began, his voice strong despite his age. "I have come to a decision regarding the succession of Adara's throne." Queen Deborah stepped forward, her jewels jingling. "Surely, my king, you will choose Ojo. He is the son of your first wife, after all." Queen Melissa, quieter but no less determined, spoke up. "My king, Chidi has the love of the people. Would that not make him the better choice?" King Alfred held up a hand, silencing them both. "I have decided that neither my choice nor your birth order will determine the next ruler of Adara. Instead, there will be a contest between Ojo and Chidi." The princes exchanged glances, a mix of curiosity and competitiveness in their eyes. Father Prince Ojo said, his voice smooth as silk, "What kind of contest do you propose?" King Alfred stood, addressing them all. "The first of you to marry and produce a male heir will be named my successor and the future king of Adara." A hush fell over the room, followed by an eruption of voices. Queen Deborah's eyes gleamed with triumph, while Queen Melissa looked worried. Prince Ojo smirked confidently, already plotting his strategy. Prince Chidi, however, seemed thoughtful, even a bit hesitant. "Silence," King Alfred commanded, and the room fell quiet once more. "This is my decision, and it is final. May the best man win, and may Adara prosper under his rule when the time comes." As the family dispersed, the air was charged with excitement and scheming. Queen Deborah pulled Prince Ojo aside, whispering furiously in his ear. Queen Melissa attempted to speak with Prince Chidi, but he politely excused himself, saying he needed time to think. Outside the palace walls, word of the king's decree spread quickly. In the marketplace, in the fields, and in every home, the people of Adara buzzed with the news. Young women dreamed of becoming a princess, while their parents calculated the advantages of such a match. But in a small, humble home on the outskirts of the kingdom, a young woman named Rachel remained blissfully unaware of the dramatic events unfolding. She was focused on her daily chores, helping her father, Mr. Samuel, prepare their meager dinner. Rachel was widely regarded as the most beautiful girl in Adara. Her long, dark hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence and kindness. Despite her beauty, Rachel had never shown interest in the prince's or palace life. She was content with her simple existence, working hard to support herself and her father. As Rachel stirred the pot of soup over the fire, Mr. Samuel watched her with a mixture of love and concern. He knew his daughter deserved more than the hard life they led, but he also respected her independent spirit. "Rachel, my dear," he said softly, "have you heard the news from the palace?" She looked up, curiosity in her eyes. "What news, Papa?" Mr. Samuel hesitated, unsure how to broach the subject. "The king has announced a contest between the princes. The first to marry and have a son will be the next ruler of Adara." Rachel raised an eyebrow, returning her attention to the soup. "Is that so? Well, I'm sure the princes will have no trouble finding wives. Half the girls in the kingdom have been dreaming of such an opportunity." Her father cleared his throat. "Rachel, have you ever considered? I mean, you're the most beautiful girl in Adara. Surely one of the princes would." Papa, Rachel interrupted gently but firmly. "You know I have no interest in that kind of life. I'm happy here with you." Mr. Samuel sighed. "I know, my dear, but sometimes I worry. I'm not getting any younger, and our life is hard. A good marriage could secure your future." Rachel left the soup and knelt beside her father, taking his weathered hands in hers. "Papa, you've taught me that true happiness comes from the heart, not from wealth or status. When I marry, it will be for love, not for a crown." Mr. Samuel smiled, patting her hand. "You're right, of course. You have your mother's wisdom. God rest her soul." As they sat down to their simple meal, neither Rachel nor her father could have imagined how their lives were about to change. For at that very moment, both Prince Ojo and Prince Chidi were formulating plans that would soon draw Rachel into the very center of the royal drama. In his opulent chambers, Prince Ojo paced back and forth, his mother Queen Deborah watching him with gleaming eyes. "This is our chance, my son," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "We must act quickly. You need to find a wife immediately." Ojo stopped pacing, turning to face his mother with a cunning smile. "Not just any wife, mother. I need the most beautiful, the most desirable woman in the kingdom. Winning her hand will be a statement in itself." Queen Deborah nodded approvingly. "You're right. But who? Most of the noble girls are simpering fools." "I've heard talk," Ojo said slowly, "of a girl named Rachel. They say she's the most beautiful in all of Adara, but she keeps to herself, rarely coming to town." A sly look crossed the queen's face. "A challenge, then. How exciting. But be careful, my son. Your brother may have the same idea." Ojo's face darkened at the mention of Chidi. That soft-hearted fool? He probably hasn't even thought about finding a wife yet. He's too busy helping old women cross the street, or some such nonsense. But Ojo was wrong. At that very moment, in a quieter part of the palace, Prince Chidi was deep in conversation with his own mother, Queen Melissa. "I don't like this," Mother Chidi said, his brow furrowed. "Marriage should be about love, not a race for the throne." Queen Melissa placed a comforting hand on her son's shoulder. "I know, my dear, but sometimes we must work within the circumstances we're given. Your father has made his decision." Chidi sighed. "But how can I ask a woman to marry me for this reason? It seems dishonest." "Then don't," his mother said simply. "Be yourself, Chidi. Let your heart guide you. The right woman will appreciate your honesty and kindness." A small smile tugged at Chidi's lips. "You always know what to say, mother. But where do I even begin?" Queen Melissa thought for a moment. "I've heard whispers of a girl named Rachel. They say she's not only beautiful but kind and hardworking too. Perhaps you could start there." Chidi nodded thoughtfully. "Rachel. I'll have to find a way to meet her, then. But I won't deceive her, mother. If anything is to happen, it will be genuine." As night fell over the kingdom of Adara, 3 souls lay awake, their minds racing with thoughts of the future. Prince Ojo plotted and schemed, determined to win at any cost. Prince Chidi wrestled with his conscience, seeking a path that would satisfy both his father's decree and his own moral compass. And Rachel, blissfully unaware of the part she was soon to play, dreamt of a simple life filled with love and purpose. Little did any of them know that fate had set its wheels in motion, and their lives were about to intertwine in ways they could never have imagined. The stage was set for a tale of love, ambition, and the true meaning of leadership in the kingdom of Adara. As the sun rose over Adara, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, the kingdom buzzed with excitement. News of the king's decree had spread like wildfire, and every eligible young woman in the land was filled with dreams of becoming a princess. Prince Ojo woke early, his mind already racing with plans. He dressed in his finest robes, adorned with gold thread and precious gems. As he adjusted his elaborate headpiece in the mirror, Queen Deborah entered his chambers. "Are you ready, my son?" she asked, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. Ojo turned to her, a confident smirk on his face. "More than ready, mother. By the end of the week, this Rachel will be mine, and the throne will be secure." Queen Deborah nodded approvingly. "Remember, Ojo, use every advantage. your charm, your status, your wealth, whatever it takes. As Ojo set out with a retinue of servants and guards, on the other side of the palace, Prince Chidi was having a very different morning. Chidi stood in his modest quarters, dressed in simple but elegant attire. He had opted for comfort over ostentation, believing that true worth lay in actions rather than appearance. Queen Melissa watched her son with a mixture of pride and concern. "Chidi, my dear, are you certain about this? Perhaps a grander approach." Chidi shook his head, smiling gently at his mother. "No, mother. If I'm to meet this Rachel, I want her to see me as I truly am, not some facade." With a small satchel of gifts for Rachel's family, Chidi set out alone, much to the dismay of the palace guards who were used to accompanying the princes everywhere. In the humble home on the outskirts of Adara, Rachel was already hard at work. She had risen before dawn to fetch water from the well, help her father with his meager crops, and prepare breakfast. As she kneaded dough for bread, she hummed softly, unaware of the approaching storm about to enter her life. Mr. Samuel entered the small kitchen, wiping sweat from his brow. "Rachel, my dear, I'm heading to the marketplace. Do we need anything?" Rachel smiled at her father. "Just some salt if you can manage it, Papa. Be careful, though. I heard the marketplace is especially busy today with all the excitement about the princes." Mr. Samuel nodded, a thoughtful look crossing his face. "Yes, indeed. Rachel, about that." But before he could continue, a commotion outside caught their attention. The sound of horses and the murmur of many voices filled the air. Rachel wiped her hands on her apron and stepped outside, her father close behind. What they saw made them both gasp in astonishment. There, in all his regal splendor, sat Prince Ojo atop a magnificent white stallion. Behind him, a procession of servants carried chests overflowing with silks, jewels, and gold. The prince's eyes scanned the modest homes until they landed on Rachel, and a triumphant smile spread across his face. "Ah," he said, his voice carrying easily over the murmurs of the gathered villagers. "You must be the beautiful Rachel I've heard so much about." Rachel, stunned by the unexpected arrival, managed a small curtsy. "Your Highness, this is unexpected." Ojo dismounted with practiced grace, approaching Rachel with confident strides. "My dear, your beauty has reached even the ears of the palace. I simply had to see for myself." He took her hand, pressing a kiss to it. Rachel felt a blush creep up her cheeks, partly from embarrassment at the attention and partly from discomfort at the prince's forwardness. "Your Highness," Mr. Samuel stepped forward, bowing deeply. "We are honored by your visit, but may I ask the reason?" Ojo turned his charming smile to the older man. "My good sir, I've come to court your daughter, of course. Surely you've heard of my father's decree." A ripple of excitement ran through the gathered crowd. Rachel, however, felt her heart sink. She had hoped to avoid precisely this kind of attention. "Your Highness," she began carefully, "I'm flattered, truly, but—" Now, Ojo interrupted smoothly. "There's no need for formalities. I've brought gifts for you and your father. Please allow me to show you the life you deserve." With a snap of his fingers, servants began unloading the chests, displaying fine silks, glittering jewels, and bags of gold coins. The villagers gasped in awe, many looking at Rachel with envy. Rachel felt overwhelmed. She looked to her father for support, but Mr. Samuel seemed equally astounded by the display of wealth. Just as Ojo was about to launch into a grand speech, another voice called out from the edge of the crowd. "Excuse me, might I pass through?" The villagers parted, revealing Prince Chidi. He was on foot, carrying a simple satchel, his clothes dusty from the walk. The contrast between the two princes could not have been starker. Ojo's face darkened at the sight of his brother. "Chidi," he said, his voice tight, What a surprise to see you here." Chidi approached, smiling warmly at Rachel and her father. "I hope I'm not intruding. I had heard about Rachel and thought I might pay a friendly visit." Rachel found herself drawn to Chidi's gentle demeanor. "Not at all, Your Highness. We're quite popular this morning, it seems." Chidi chuckled, his eyes twinkling with genuine amusement. "So I see. Brother, you've certainly made quite an entrance." Ojo straightened, placing a possessive hand on Rachel's shoulder. "Well, when courting the most beautiful woman in the kingdom, one must make an effort." Rachel gently but firmly removed Ojo's hand. "Your Highnesses, this is all very unexpected. Perhaps we could continue this conversation inside? Our neighbors are quite curious, it seems." Indeed, the entire village had gathered to witness the unprecedented event of both princes vying for the attention of a common girl. Mr. Samuel, finally finding his voice, nodded vigorously. Yes, please, Your Highnesses. Our home is humble, but you are most welcome." As they moved towards the small house, Ojo turned to his retinue. "Wait here. I'm sure this won't take long." Chidi, on the other hand, bowed slightly to Rachel's father. "Mr. Samuel, I hope you don't mind, but I brought a small gift. It's not much, just some rare seeds for your garden that I thought you might enjoy." Mr. Samuel's eyes lit up. "Seeds? How thoughtful. Please, come in, come in." Inside the modest home, Rachel busied herself preparing tea, grateful for the chance to collect her thoughts. The two princes sat at the small table, the opulent Ojo looking distinctly out of place in the humble surroundings. Rachel, Ojo began as soon as she set down the tea. "Surely you've heard of my father's decree. The first prince to marry and produce an heir will be the next king. The first I'm offering you the chance to be that princess, that queen." Chidi sipped his tea quietly, observing Rachel's reaction. She sat down, her brow furrowed in thought. "Your Highness," she said carefully, "while I'm flattered by your offer, I hardly know you. Marriage is a serious commitment, not a race to be won." Ojo waved his hand dismissively. "Details, my dear. Think of the life you could have. No more struggling, no more hard work. You'd have servants to cater to your every whim." Rachel's eyes flashed. "I'm not afraid of hard work, Your Highness. It's what gives life meaning." Chidi set down his cup, leaning forward slightly. "If I may, I'd like to take a different approach." He turned to Rachel, his eyes sincere. "I won't pretend that my father's decree isn't a factor, but I'm not here to rush you into anything. I'd like the chance to get to know you, Rachel, to understand your dreams, your fears, what makes you smile." Rachel found herself smiling despite the overwhelming situation. "That's very kind of you, Prince Chidi." Ojo scoffed. "This is ridiculous. Rachel, surely you can see that I'm offering you everything you could ever want." "Except choice," Rachel said quietly. "Your Highnesses, this is all very sudden. I appreciate your interest truly, but I'm not prepared to make any decisions today." Mr. Samuel, who had been watching the exchange with growing concern, spoke up. "Perhaps, my dear, you could spend some time with each of the princes? Get to know them before making any choices." Rachel nodded slowly. "That seems fair. If, of course, the princes are amenable to the idea." Ojo looked as if he'd swallowed something sour, but nodded stiffly. "Of course. I'm sure once you see all that I can offer, the choice will be clear." Chidi smiled warmly. "I think that's an excellent idea. Rachel, would you perhaps like to visit the royal gardens tomorrow? They're quite beautiful this time of year." "I'd like that," Rachel said, finding herself drawn to Chidi's gentle manner. As the princes prepared to leave, the contrast between them had never been clearer. Ojo strode out, already barking orders at his retinue, while Chidi lingered to thank Rachel and her father for their hospitality. Once they were alone, Mr. Samuel turned to his daughter. "Rachel, my dear, are you sure about this? It's a big decision." Rachel sighed, sinking into a chair. "I'm not sure of anything right now, Papa, but I know I can't rush into marriage, even if it is to a prince." As the sun began to set on this extraordinary day, Rachel found herself standing outside, looking at the path that led to the palace. Her life had been so simple this morning, and now, everything had changed. Little did she know that back at the palace, Queen Deborah was already plotting her next move, determined to secure the throne for her son at any cost. The quiet kingdom of Adara was about to become the stage for a battle of love, ambition, and the true meaning of nobility.
Write the word continue in the comment section if you want the next part, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. Kindly click the subscribe button, like, comment, and share this video. Watch out for more intriguing and eye-catching videos from your favorite YouTube channel.